hit the ground, it sent a shock up my entire body. And I grabbed onto the fence, and I knew something was horribly wrong. And because I was in so much pain, and I couldn't tell them where it was coming from. All I knew is that when my toes touched the ground, it shot up pain through my entire body that was absolutely unbearable. So they rushed me into sports med there at Houston Rodeo, and I was leaning up on the table. I knew I didn't want, I couldn't sit down, I couldn't lie down, I couldn't stand up, I couldn't do anything to make me comfortable enough to even be able to speak. And they kept asking me, what's wrong? And I kept telling them, I don't know. I'm just in so much pain. And of course, the doctor came in and he moved one of my legs and pushed it up toward my chest. And when he did that, I started vomiting because of the pain. And so, of course, they said, you need to go to the hospital. And, we went to the hospital. I'm not sure what they did there. We did some scans. I just remember being in pain, and they basically just sent me home. And so they sent me home. It was a sad drive because, I didn't get to finish competing. At that point in time, I didn't know how bad my injuries were. I just knew I was in a lot of pain. And, of course, when you're young and you've never had a serious injury, you think everything's going to go away. And I went home, and I got my test results back, in which I had the 2 bulge discs, and the neurologist explained to me how I damaged the band of nerves around my tailbone, and that's why my legs weren't working. When I say they weren't working, I could feel my legs, but they wouldn't listen to my brain. And I could maybe lift them, a couple centimeters off of the ground, maybe. But it was very painful every time that I tried to move them or do anything with them. And they just would not listen to my brain. So that was the initial nerve damage that was going on. And it was very scary. And so when the doctor was telling me about nerve damage, he said it could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months, it could be 2 years. It could never be the same. That's the thing with nerve damage. We just don't know. And basically, I had cut into my sciatic nerve, which that doesn't heal, so it's still cut to this day. Not in half, obviously, because I have movement of my left leg. However, there's always that potential risk of damaging my sciatic nerve further, and then ultimately losing movement in my left leg. So that was a huge drop on me, and very scary. And of course, though, at that point in time, I'm a kid, right? I'm 21 years old, and I'm thinking, this, you always get better. We always get better. And my dad, he played, football professionally and collegiately, and everybody in my family is in sports. And we know, the power of the mind and the mental mindset that you need to be in order to overcome injuries and be successful. So my dad helped me get in with the trainer for the Lobos here in Albuquerque, New Mexico at UNM. And they put me underwater. And underwater, my legs would listen to my brain and I could move them. And I suppose that is because we are 10% of our body weight underwater. And therefore, my brain allowed my body to move because it knew I wasn't going to further injure myself. So on the underwater treadmill, I watched my legs on a camera. I watched them as they moved, as the treadmill moved. And this was, very exciting for me. However, when I would start to climb out of the water, I would then need help walking, once I started getting waist high out of the water and my body weight was on my legs. I then could not, continue climbing up the stairs out of the water and needed help. But that is how we started my therapy. So I'm going to try to make this long story shorter and skip through all of my rehab. But it was extensive. It was 3 times a day, and I had tons and tons of help from so many people because I could not even drive to rehab. My foot would not press down on the gas pedal and the brake, so obviously it would not be safe for me to drive. I get home, I'm rolling on the foam roller, I'm seeing my physical therapist that the doctor recommended. I'm also going to the Lobos trainer and doing physical therapy there. And at this point in time, I suppose my mom was riding my horses. I'm not sure. However, we were doing everything we could to get better because I had qualified for the Dodge Circuit Finals, which is a huge goal in anybody's barrel racing career. And you have to either win your circuit from the previous year or win the average at your circuit finals, in which we did both. So we won the circuit and we won the average, which was so neat. And that was another, surreal day where I got to come home with 2 saddles and all these buckles from my circuit finals, and we won every round there. And just Shotgun was such an amazing athlete, and he always came through when it counted. And I remember too that Shotgun had at that point in time at our circuit finals tore a muscle in his back, and Dr. Paul Jensen was doing shockwave therapy on him almost every day during my circuit finals. And so we would haul him to Dr. Jensen, and then we would haul back to the circuit finals and compete. And so, of course, I wanted to go to Florida to the Dodge Circuit Finals, and you can win a truck, and it's just very prestigious. And that was my goal. And it was in, I think, the end of April, maybe the beginning of March, it was the end of April, Dodge Circuit Finals. And so that's my goal, is to run there. And I never thought I wouldn't be able to run there. Why would I not heal fast enough to run there? And unfortunately, my body wasn't healing, and I was trying to force it. And the WPRA kept calling me, asking me if I was able to compete, and that they needed to let the next girl down know whether or not I could compete at the Dodge Circuit Finals. And so this was putting the pressure on me to heal as rapidly as possible. And, I was working my butt off. I was, rolling every day, stretching. Gosh, there wasn't a moment in time I wasn't stretching, trying to, get my legs back to where they needed to be and my body back to where it needed to be in order to compete at that level. And finally, I'm riding, but I'm just walking at this point in time. And I'm kind of loping my horse. I'm just holding on to the horn and, trying to make it work. And of course, we have the social media, and the girls from my circuit were unfortunately not being very nice to me in my eyes. However, they were not attacking me, but they were just really excited for the fact that the next girl up in our circuit may be able to go to the circuit finals if I were unable to compete. So they were posting things like, "Oh, please pray," I'm not going to name her name, but the next girl up may be able to get to go. It's always been her dream. And that just really, they weren't being vindictive to me at all. It was just hurting my feelings because I was going through, this injury and fighting it. And to that point in life, it was one of the most difficult things I had done and gone through. So to see that was hard because I felt like people weren't trying to help me. be able to compete again, and and didn't really care. However, the good thing about not being able to do anything is that you read a lot and start learning, and you pray and pray and pray. And I was just, praying that I would be healed and trying to trust God. So the Debbie PRA called me and told me I needed to tell them within 24 hours whether or not I could go compete at the Dodge Circuit Finals. So I get out there, and I have my younger brother Pace help me, and we sat on my horse, and it wasn't Shotgun, it was Pure Victory Dash, Twisted Sister, and I got on her at home, and I tried to make a run, and she turned the first barrel, and my legs didn't work to push me up out of my saddle to go to the next barrel. It's a very simple act. You just pull on the horn and push yourself up out of the saddle as they leave a barrel. And since my legs didn't work to do that, I started bouncing, and I hit the back of the saddle, and it literally made me black out from the pain. And luckily Pace was there, and he, I assume, helped me off my horse and unsaddled her. Thank you, Pace. And I realized that not only would I not be competing at the Dodge Circuit Finals, I may never be able to compete at that level again. And so I had to make that dreaded call, and they said thank you, called the next girl up, and she went to the Dodge Circuit Finals. And I started becoming, a little depressed, and the not knowing where my life was going at that point in time. And I had also, qualified for Calgary, which was a lifelong dream. We would always watch Calgary, hear about Calgary, read about Calgary, and it's an event in Canada, Alberta, Canada, that if you win $100,000, and it's in an arena we knew my horse would do well in. It was his pin, and that was in July. And at this point in time, we're in April, and I am, burdened with the news that I will not be able to compete at the Dodge Circuit Finals, worried I may not be able to compete at Calgary or be able to compete ever again at the professional elite level. And so I started doing a lot of praying and reading, and I came across a book called Fearless by Max Lucado. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. And I read that book, and it was about being fearless in all that you do. And I realized that I needed to overcome my fear of not knowing where my life was going, or not knowing that I would ever be able to compete again, and replace that fear with a trust and a faith in the Lord that God's plan is always bigger and better than our own plan. So my plan was to run at the Dodge Circuit Finals, run at Calgary, make the NFR again, and I had to accept God's plan, but fully be okay with it and excited about it. So once I became excited about God's new plan for my life and okay with the fact that I may never be able to compete again professionally at the elite level, once I became okay with that, and I started praying to God and telling him, I'm okay with whatever you want me to do in life. I am ready for this next step. And it can be anything you want me to do. It doesn't even have to be with horses. I completely let go of everything that I wanted within me, and I gave it to God and quit asking for him to answer my prayers, but then just gave my life to him and told him, I will do whatever you want me to do. whatever, your best plan for me is, I will do it full-heartedly. And the